Should be good. We should be live. And yep. Just testing it out. Cool. All right, guys. We're going to be starting. Thank you all for coming to the LinkedIn and Resume Workshop. Let me move this chair real quick so I don't trip on it. So if you haven't signed in yet, please sign in. It's real quick. If not, I can show it at the end. And let's get right into it. So, of course, we're Google Developer Student Clubs. This is our LinkedIn and Resume Workshop here at FIU. We're really excited. We have some really important stuff to talk to you guys about, some tips that we've learned. And I think let's just get into it. And throughout the entire thing, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt us. We're here for that. So yeah, let's get right into it. So I am Hermes. I'm actually an incoming Microsoft Explorer intern. I've gotten some final round interviews at Ford, LinkedIn, then some overall just interviews at other companies like Salesforce and so on. And yeah, so building a LinkedIn, really important to reach out to all those recruiters and everything. We'll talk right about that, as well as building the perfect resume, because it's the first impression that they have of you, and we're here to give you the tips. And with me is Paulina, who, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Paulina Costa, and I did an internship at Wells Fargo, and now I'm an incoming Disney software engineer. I as well had other final round interviews, and I am going to share with you a lot of tips that helped me get those interviews and final round interviews. Okay, so let's keep moving. So why should we have a LinkedIn, right? We should use it to search for jobs. Of course, that's like number one. Also, you can use it to see how your peers are doing, right? What are they getting, right? What are your peers or the people that study in your same university? What are they capable of, so that you can know what you're capable of as well. You can also project yourself into the future. You can see people that are a certain company or position and that you would like to be there. So you want to know how that person, what experiences they have, what kind of roles they have accepted, so that they can you can see and project yourself into the future. Also, you will conduct outreach for applications. So as you know, when you submit an application, it's very easy to do that, and you are lost in a sea of a lot of applications. So the way that you can stand out is through LinkedIn. Also, you can get some compensation negotiation insight, because what comes after you accept the offer, or what comes after you pass the final round interviews, is you need to make sure that what you're getting is fair enough, and that you know your worth and your value. Also, LinkedIn can help you prepare for interviews. We're going to talk about this later on. So just to give you a little, give you a little bit of how the LinkedIn salary tool works. This is just an estimate, right, of what you could be getting as a software engineer with less than a year of experience. And this is your base salary, right? There are other things apart from your cash salary that you can get, which is the additional compensation. You can get things like bonuses, sign-on bonuses, restricted stock units, and stock options. So this is a way for you to see whether the offer that you have is good enough, right? You can compare it to this metrics that you have here. So you'll also have information per location. So as you may know, you might get a higher salary at a certain location. San Francisco, for example, has a high cost of living. But at the end of the day, your real income will be the same as if you're living in a low-cost area like Florida. So yeah, just for you to know, these are tools that are out there that you can use to help yourself get better offers. So who uses LinkedIn? Apart from yourselves, we have the visual online resume searchable applicant tracking solutions. So these are literally machines that are scanning through thousands of applicants and are trying to look for certain keywords. So for example, if we have, and probably Hermes will talk about this later as well, so some companies might search for a keyword like Java, right? You want a skill that is Java. You need to make sure that your LinkedIn has that specific keyword. Also, hiring managers use LinkedIn. Hiring managers are the one of the big weights in the decision whether you get hired or not. So you can also connect to this people through LinkedIn. You have recruiters. Recruiters are the ones that will carry you throughout the whole process of interviewing and applying. You have potential mentors, people who you can look up to and that you can ask for advice. And then, of course, your peers, which are your classmates, people you share your classes with. Now, what are some of the best practices? You should always have a profile picture. This is because everyone else has it, so it's just more comfortable when you click on a person's profile to always have a LinkedIn picture. You should have a recent picture, not you know, when you were young, or it actually looks like you right now. And your outfit should match the industry. So usually the tech industry is very informal, so you can, don't be completely informal, but also take into account no suits, for example, or something way too formal because of the industry. Now you should always upload a header image like the one you see here. It's just better, we'll show you an exercise about that, how different it looks a profile when you have a header landscape or a header picture instead of just a usual default LinkedIn picture. Now we have headline format. This is something that you could also get. It's a very quick review of what you do. So it's this part that you see here. Very useful when recruiters are skimming through profiles. And then you can also have featured links to your GitHub profile or portfolio. Don't link your resume because sometimes you want to apply. When you want to apply, sometimes you want to tailor your resume to a certain job description, or your resume is always changing. So you don't want to put that in a static part, which is your LinkedIn. So there's just some examples of headers that you could use. For example, computer science at FIU, you want to be an aspiring software engineer and you're a community organizer, right? So the format here is what you're working in, for example, what you're studying right now, and then a catchy phrase, right? For example, all things ML, computer vision, and NLP. These are other examples as well. For example, if you were an intern before, you're part of a student organization, and of course the catchy phrase at the end. Now, in terms of LinkedIn itself, when you want to add an experience, this is a question you usually get, right? You want to add bullet points. This is a shortcut. For some reason, LinkedIn doesn't have like an editor with bullet points, so you have to do this kind of commands in order to get the bullet points. And another thing I wanted to mention is that you cannot reorder sections in LinkedIn, meaning that you cannot put, for example, your volunteering experience on top of your experience or work experience. So because of this, we recommend that you list your unpaid relevant experience in your work experience. Even though you didn't get paid for it, it's not technically a job, but it's the first thing that you will see while you scroll through your profile. So you have volunteering experience, if you have open source contributions, if you have leadership experience, even though they're not work because you weren't paid, it's very important that you list it as work experience. Just because we're students, we're not expected to get paid yet. So it's also important that even if you don't have like a tech experience, you list your transferable experience. This is because you might have worked managing a project. You might have an interesting story about teamwork or an interesting challenge that you have faced. So it's very important that even though it's not very tech related, you can put that because those are soft skills that employers are also looking for. Also, when I say external stakeholders, I mean, for example, when you had to comply with certain metrics or performance goals. Now, why do you want to connect with different entities here? So you usually would like to connect with a recruiter because you want to get your application seen. As I said before, you have a sea of application. Everyone is applying to the same role, the same internship, and you want to make sure that you get an interview at least. You want to make sure that you're heard. So what you do is you contact the recruiter, you send them your resume, and that way that recruiter can get you at least an interview, right? Why would you like to connect with your hiring manager? It's because sometimes you can get interviews with your hiring manager, and you want to make sure that you don't ask the questions that everyone asks, right? Like, what's your favorite part of your job? What's the best about working at this company? These are questions that they always get. So you want to make sure to read their profile and maybe ask a deeper question. This will make you stand out. The same thing happens with the interviewer. Sometimes you will know who you will be interviewing before the interview. So you might want to reflect upon some questions that are of interest, not only to you, but also for the interviewer. Now, how can we use the search bar? How can we find these people? You can, as you can see in the first arrow, we have the first arrow, you can find the role. So the role is recruiter, hiring manager. Usually hiring managers are engineers, so their title will not be hiring manager. You'll only know this as you keep going through the process. And then you have interviewees as well. You can find them by name. There are filters, very good filters in LinkedIn. Here you can search, for example, recruiter that works at Google, right? And you will get a lot of options. What you can do next is reach out to them, give them your resume, and tell them you're applying for an internship at Google. So if they're interested in that, they can follow up and speed up your process to get you an interview at least. Yeah, so now you can also find people that have things in common with you. For example, alumni of FIU. You can find people who worked, or recruiters who worked at your past company. So let's say I had an internship at IBM, right? So they can probably relate to you. These are the people that will most likely help you, rather than other people who you don't have things in common with. For example, Hermes told me if you have a common name with someone, that is something you can also talk about and leverage on. Another way to use a search bar is when I was, or I'm still, right, not sure about what exact role I want to follow in the future. So you can, the role of software engineer is the most popular among computer science, but other roles, like for example, data scientist, right? You have cloud engineer. You have other types of career paths that we're curious about, but we really don't know what they are about. So you can go into a person's profile and really just skim through their experience and get an idea of what it takes to be in that role, what it takes to, what experience they have that led them to that point. And yeah, so you have maybe found before, you know, the post, happy to announce, right? Everyone gets an internship at Google, Meta, other companies, right? So first, our natural response could be, oh, they got an internship, now I have to get one, right? But also you can leverage on this. You can always find, or most of the times you can always find the recruiter. They're thanking their recruiter. What you can do there is find a recruiter that is willing to give interviews to recent graduates, right? We are starting our careers right now, and not all recruiters focus on early career. So this is a way that you can find recruiters that might be interested in you. You can get in contact with them, and this is also a good strategy. Other considerations when you're skimming through LinkedIn, usually, and this is something I didn't know when I started using LinkedIn, when you enter into a person's LinkedIn, they can see your profile. So, for example, this is my profile. I just saw these people were skimming through my profile. And that is fine. You don't have to have any shame on that. It's just that just be aware. I have a funny story here. I was, how Chrome auto-completes your search bar. And the first time I clicked on LinkedIn, it auto-completed to a profile of one of the professors that I had. So I always used the autocomplete. So I was always going to his profile every time I wanted to use LinkedIn. So he actually absolutely knew, right? So just to avoid those kind of mistakes. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this part. Now this is your...
Yes. Thank you, Paulina, for that. That's really good insight on LinkedIn. And so a little bit further into LinkedIn before we go into resume. Remember, LinkedIn is a place full of opportunities. You have to leverage it to what you want to do, right? So what we're trying to all do is get internships and get jobs. So all the advice that Paulina said is really applicable. And even from today on, I think you should take it all. And definitely work on your profile. So how many people here has met somebody and already had a bad impression? I know I have. It happens. It's just first impression. And so first impressions do matter. And this is the same as meeting somebody in person, right? This is like introducing yourself for the first time, right? So you have to make sure everything looks good. Your profile picture, you want to express, maybe a smile would be good. Something that encapsulates you. And so banners. A lot of people forget to put the banner, and so they go to the default banner, which in my opinion is a little bit sullen. And in a world where a lot of good applicants have a banner that's colorful, that's attractive, and often relevant to your experiences. Is it? It's because it's tracking. So yeah, that's good. That's good. So in a world where a lot of people have the banners, not having a banner is actually more of a big deal than you would think. So don't worry, I got you. Do you see a difference between the two? I don't know about you. I think it's a bit more inviting to have something that's a little colorful. Maybe something that's special to you. So a lot of people do like the cities they work in and so on. But so I spent a really long time making a few banners, and I'll show you real quick potentially how they look. So don't worry, I'll share all the slides. Of course, if you can take a picture if you want, but we'll share the slides so you'll have all the links. And so I made a few that you can just use. You just export it. I have a screenshot on it. You export it and you just use it for your profile, and feel free. So some of them are GDSC special. With the Google colors and the blobs, I made a variant of every single color just in case you were like, damn, I really wanted the blue and the green in that particular order. This is your profile. This is you, right? When you go out and you have an outfit on, you think about that outfit, right? I mean, the whole day you're like planning, sometimes your whole day around like going out with this outfit and feeling good. So your profile is no different. This is almost like your digital outfit. So I just provided some that hopefully you like, whatever your taste is, so that you don't have to have the default banner. And yeah. So let's get back to this full screen. There you go. So like I showed you here, you can see the export. So on any of them, if you click it, export it, you can use all of it. And yeah, so let's talk resume, right? Let's say you have a great LinkedIn now. Now you need to have a good resume, right? Because you're going to be reaching out to these recruiters and filling out the jobs. You need to make sure that your resume is on point. So this is my friend's resume, Azar. This was one of his first resumes. So obviously, I think we've all experienced it. Our first resumes are the ones that are kind of like you learn what not to do. And let's look at some of the things that I think we need to be aware of. So for example, including an objective, right? This is normally great. In some countries, they do require this. However, in the US, be efficient with your space. Now, with this, the objective, I read it, it's great, but it doesn't really tell me anything. To be honest, I just skim over it. And now I'm losing a lot of space where I could talk about my relevant experiences. And if you have a giant empty space like this, it's never good. Always fill it with something. Now you might think like, I don't have an internship. How am I supposed to do anything? Well, one, you have clubs, so we're here for that. So you can definitely talk about something like that. If you did a specific app, for example, in one of our dev communities, you can talk about that, and that is a project. You can do your own projects. For example, in the past, I've made a tic-tac-toe game, very basic, but that is definitely a project. And you might even have courses that you took. So there are ways to take your courses and make it into a course section in your resume if you're kind of having a bit of empty space. Now for the rest, we'll see as we go through some of the other things that resumes have, but this is actually quite a good starter resume. There's a lot of really good parts in this, but definitely we can improve that. So let's get a little bit deeper in. The education part. So this is good. We have the FIU and we have the high school. So often, depending on what year you're in, if you're just freshman, you might still want to include your high school, but typically if you have enough things to talk about, just include your FIU. Your FIU experience. So you see they put the honors college. Now there's a bit of change in italics and the color in honors college and then AP National Scholar. So one thing that I wanted to bring up is structure, right? You want to be consistent all throughout. Now I'm going to talk more about this later, but you want your resume to be as skimmable as possible without them having to skim through your resume and not get anything from it, because they are going to skim it, and that's a guarantee. They just have way too many resumes. And I'll talk a bit more about that. But that is really important, having that structure. Now you see the dates. The dates are good, and the GPA, of course, is also good. Now, my recommendation is don't put your GPA on your resume unless it's higher than a 3.5. Now, if you're lower than a 3.5, no worries. I never put my GPA on. I had one bad C in psychology, and I was like, it's like a 3.3. It's a bit better now, but I just never put it on. And I figured I'd rather them guess my GPA based on my experiences, which would probably be higher than 3.3, and not focus too much on my GPA. Now, there are some jobs who do care, but I would say generally, if it's below 3.5, don't include it, or consider a major GPA. There is a GPA that you can get that is specific to your major classes and not the electives, which is probably something that I could have done. So remember, efficient use of space. This is pretty good efficiency on space. Include your major and minor if you're doing any. Now, this is the service section that he had. The problem with this is I read it, and it's really nice. So rehabilitate abused and damaged horses. I mean, that's lovely. Problem is, I don't know what your impact was. What did you do here? If you were to go on my team, how would you help me, right? Because especially if you're applying to a role that doesn't have to do with rehabilitating horses, it's less about what the experience was rather than what you did, right? So here you might be able to say that you helped 5 horses go from an abused, rehabilitated state to completely being able to be free again. So show your impact. What did you do specifically, and how did it impact your experience? Okay, and now we have Casey's. So this is Casey's right here. This is also one of her first resumes. Now, actually, for a first resume, this is really nice. You see that it's really efficient with its use of space. Now, a bit too close maybe in the bottom, could have used a bit more padding for the margin, but not a problem at all. But as any first resumes, there are some key parts that we need to talk about. So let's dive in. Let's go to the education. So we have FIU, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. You got the anticipated graduation, which is important. Some companies do like to have that because that's how they kind of measure what year you're in and so on. Then we have an accomplishment list, which is called Dean List here. If you have more accomplishments, you might want to consider just doing accomplishments and then doing something like Dean's List Fall 2019. And then you have the relevant coursework, which is often good. I have a few myself, so if you have Programming 1, Programming 2, but make sure that it's relevant. One thing with me, I had taken organic chemistry. I was like, okay, well, that shows diligence, right? It was kind of weird. You know, I was applying for tech positions, and I had organic chemistry as a relevant experience, which is not relevant. So even though you might have that diligence, try to focus on, like if you're tech, for example, use math courses and programming courses, or even sometimes creative writing courses could work as well. So now we go to the skills section. Now there's a couple things I want to talk about that. Personally, I think skills are great. They're a great way to do what we mentioned, which is make sure that your resume is ATS friendly. So that's when they scan your resume or your profile and try to get key terms that they're looking for, right? Key technologies that they might be working with, and it's just an automatic system to kind of slim down the pool. Now, you might be a great applicant, but if the ATS system skims you out, they could be really terrible. So skills section is great. I normally have it on the bottom. If you remember, this was more in the center. Now about the skills. So she opened up with Java and Adobe Photoshop as the main skills, and then here talked about some projects that she did. Now I'm missing two things. One, the impact, right? Okay, I see that you made a tic-tac-toe game, but I have no clue what technologies you did, what you were doing in that project. Not necessarily like explaining what tic-tac-toe is, but how you implemented it, right? So technology-wise and everything. And personally, I think that she could have switched this, right? Instead of having a skills section with Java opening, have a project section wherein you talk, for example, one of these specific games, whichever one you're most proud of, let's say tic-tac-toe, and there you say, code it up in Java, use this library, if it's, if you made an HTML, if you made a website in HTML, CSS, you can include all of that. And I think like that it's a lot easier because remember, recruiters are also human. And telling in a way of a project is much better. Like if I was explaining something I did in Python, I probably would be better explaining a project that I did rather than listing all the projects that I did, right? So pretty logical. And you'll see that's a common pattern, right? Think about how you would want to read it. Put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter. Now, Adobe is the same. So like I was saying with impact metrics, and you'll see this when I bring up some of my resume, a good part about impact metrics is sprinkling them throughout. So even if they want to skim, they stop at it because it's just normal. You see a number, you're kind of interested, like, okay, now I want to see what this was about. You'll see in a second. So experience. So these are some great experiences, but again, no impact metrics. So as interested as I am here, I'm a busy recruiter, right? No, hypothetically, I'm not a recruiter. But hypothetically, I'm going through this and my eyes just skim. I mean, I don't know if it's just because we've been too used to seeing too much text all throughout. I know that in classes, I've gotten quite good at skimming, and I'm sure you have as well. So having some impact metrics could really spice this up. Now, one thing that Casey did really well here that I'll show is some of the verbs that she uses. These are action verbs. Now, instead of always having the same verbs and saying, created, you might have some other ones like budgeting, compiles, resolve. Now, these are really action terms that already from one word, remember, we're trying to be efficient as you can in one sentence. Every word does matter, right? Remember, impressions matter. And so having a strong start, like resolving, immediately I start this out and I'm thinking, okay, this is somebody that goes and resolves.
Would you recommend putting stuff that's not like that relevant about it? Like I know this says you can put stuff that's like not exactly tech. So would you accept things like fast food jobs and stuff like that? Is that
Yes.
reading?
Yeah. So if you, of course, focus. If you have tech experiences, focus that, right? Put that at the top, or however you organize it. But if you do have fast food jobs, that doesn't mean that you can't include it, right? Just like I mentioned with Azars, remember the rehabilitation of horses? If that's the only experience you have, leverage it. Just show your impact. And at fast food jobs, you might be able to say, okay, well, this isn't the tech part of me, but this is the personal side of me, how I work on a team. What impact did I do in that tech job, in that fast food job that would relate to a team at a tech company?
Right. So would you put like a different section? So like a relevant experience section and then other experiences, something like that?
I would just put in the experiences. So obviously if you have some tech jobs, those might be ranked higher, and you might want a recruiter to see that first. But if you think it's an important, section, like mentioning the fast food job, and you did have an impact and you want to talk about that, do not count it out just because it's a job that's not directly in tech. It can show your leadership skills. It can show how well you work in a team, and maybe that you go and resolve problems. So does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Any questions in the meantime? Yeah, feel free to always ask questions. That's wonderful. And so yeah, the key here, impact metrics. Key to your resume. If you don't have impact metrics, we need to implement them now. And as we roast your resume, we can work on that. This is a really good one. So remember, I'll be sharing this slides to you in our Discord and so on. So don't worry, you can't really like see the link here, but it was like a long link. This is the MIT actions verb list. It's one that I use a lot to get like those verbs, because oftentimes you get stuck on the same one. And remember, words matter. So you want to try to get multiple different words. So this is really good resources. It's a really good resource. Okay, now this is my current resume. Hopefully it looks a bit good. It does look a bit busy, right? But this is again about being efficient. Now immediately it looks boring, right? There's no nice colors like Casey's and Azar's have. But again, it's about being skimmable, because actually, on average, recruiters only look at your resume for 7 seconds. I'm not joking. 7 seconds. Yeah. And these are for the biggest companies, right? Because you have thousands of applicants per week that they look at. So they've gotten really good at skimming it, like I mentioned, and just going through it and knowing immediately, okay, do I have time for this? Is this somebody that I want to give an interview to or not? And now it is unfair, but it's just part of how they have to be efficient. Now it does look boring, but this is actually a really good resume template. This was based on a few templates that I saw, and we have one for you as well. But it is important to have the industry standard resume, because that's what they're used to. And really it's about anticipating the information. They're used to it, so they kind of know where they have to look at, and immediately they'll know if they're interested or not. So make their job easy. Now a big one, like you saw with Azar and Casey, they did this both really well. Have your name at the top, make it big. Now don't make it, the entire thing, but make it big enough that it's reasonable, but that if I'm seeing from far, I know that it's yours, right? Oftentimes now it's not really printed and giving out, but it's the same concept. Remember, this is about you. Now, include your information, like your phone number, your email. I included the LinkedIn and GitHub. Those are actually clickable links. You can do that in some PDFs. I recommend that, but you can also include just the www.linkedin, or don't even include the www. Just do linkedin.com/ and then your profile. That works as well too, but I always try to think about like almost like the user experience of the resume. So definitely do that. Do not include your address. This is something that I did in the beginning too, and a lot of people do. One, either they will not care about your address at all. I mean, they're not gonna like send like a thank you package, like they will if you get accepted, right? But then they'll ask for your address there. And the only thing that it can do is actually work against you. One, it's taking up space, but two, if they're thinking about like, well, we have to pay somebody to relocate. Now this is for full-time jobs, right? This is more for full-time jobs, but they might be thinking like, okay, well, we have 2 really good applicants, but one, we're gonna have to pay $2,000 to move from across the US, versus the other one is right here, right? So don't put yourself at a disadvantage like that. Now, education-wise, try to have it at the top. So I have my FIU. You have, for example, if you're in the honors program, right underneath is your major and your degree. So I have a minor, so I added it in there. graduation date, Miami, Florida. Keep it simple, only what they need. Relevant courseworks, this is a bit outdated, but here you have some like relevant courseworks. Organizations, very important. So I mean, you guys are all part of GDSC, so feel free, put it in there. One, it has Google in it, so that's often like a really eye catcher. And this shows that you're involved, right? You're passionate about the topic enough to go out of your way, just as you are today, and go and attend workshops and be part of a community. It makes a giant difference. It makes really a big difference. So yeah, have some of these things. If you work at a lab or something, you might be able to include that. So here's some of my experiences. So I decided to do this by chronological order. So the ones that are still present and that are the longest, do it like that. That's normally recommended, but in general, those are really tiny details, not too bad. But you'll see I underlined, in all of my experiences, I underlined my impact metrics in red. And you can see they're sprinkled all throughout. Very strategic places, by the way, may I add. It's like you have to think about, again, the efficiency and somebody going through and skimming. Now, take a minute, to read impact. And the point is that you can't skim through these things because you read through it, right? You're like, okay, well, the first point, whatever, I can maybe skip it. Then you go here and you see something like 124.7 million. I go, hold up, I wasn't reading that before. What is that? I'm kind of interested now. Then you go back and you read and you think, okay, well, I see what they did here. And then I see like the impact that they did. And that's the point, right? It's not that they don't like you or they don't want to know about you. They're just efficient. They have a lot of resumes to go through. So just make it almost interesting for them to do. And you see that in the one previous too, where I underlined it. Use percentage. So oftentimes that's a good way to show, because in big companies, it's all about like percentage because it's proportional to what they're doing. Show like if you were instructing workshops, how many workshops did you instruct? Bye, Natalia. Thanks for coming. How many workshops did you do? How many organizations did you work with, et cetera, et cetera. And that makes it really interesting and stand out. So hopefully that made some sense. Any questions about that? Because that is a very big deal about your resume. This is like the meat of your resume.
Will you share your template, like what you scored or something?
Yeah, so with me it's a bit difficult. This is like a bad practice that you shouldn't do. I started out with a PDF, so I'm actually like editing a PDF. Not smart. You actually want to do it like in a Google Doc or a Word document, just so that you can easily fix it, right? What? No, it's not LaTeX. I'm not that good, although that is a smart idea. But you want to be doing it like in a Google Doc and so on, so you can fix it, have it as a PDF, and just send it, right? But I do have a template for you. That's the good news. And it's a really good one. So I'll share with you in a second. Sound good? Anybody else? No? Okay. So going on, you have projects. See, this is a part where remember that resumes are always, it's like a living document, right? Obviously, you get more experiences as you go on, but you always have to be working on it. And you always find of different ways that you structure your information. You might have different changes if this is an experience that still goes on. And so with this, I only have one impact metric. So you can see the difference. It's a lot easier to skim through this than the rest. But luckily, the rest kind of makes up for it. So at this point, hopefully, you're a bit more interested and you actually go and read it. Because remember, it's an average of 7 seconds, but doesn't mean that they don't go to one applicant and spend a long time on one. It's just the average, which is just like going through quickly. And this is the skill part that I was telling you about with ATS, right? I like to have this skill section. One, it's really compact. And it's pretty fun to read for them because they're like, okay, let me check. Does this person have React? Do they have like this specific library that we work with? Oh, okay, we do. So it's good both for humans, but for computers, it's even better because this is really what ATS does is, I mean, on a general scale, it counts how many words you have maybe in a section or in the entire thing, and they have specific keywords that they'll be like, okay, this is a keyword that I want. And they'll look at how many keywords that they want versus how many words you have. That's why it's important about being efficient and mentioning the specific libraries and tools that you're using. So of course, some of these should be in your projects. How did you use that in there? But this is often, it's like a good summary of your tools, your skills, and so on. The key part of everything that I've told you is be skimmable, right? I know I've said this over and over again, but make it easy for a recruiter to want to give you an interview, to want to tell their hiring manager, like, check this resume out, it's good. And you'll only need 30 seconds and you'll know already if you want to meet the person. Remember, just like an impression. You know immediately if you like the person or you don't, right? So give them a reason to stay and read your resume. Now, some pro tips. This is a tip that I don't think a lot of people cover, but very important. Name your resume, and then your name. A lot of people just name it resume, right? Because you have it in your computer, and obviously you're the only person that's like using the computer, right? So to you, it's obvious, resume. Now, if 20 applicants have that, you become resume 18. And if I'm trying to show my hiring manager, or I'm trying to show somebody, like, check this resume out, then how am I going to search for you? I'm not going to remember what number you were. So make sure you have your name, because then I could search, okay, Hermes, and then the resume will pop up. So that's pro tip. Use some folders to designate, like, okay, this is from October 10th, and so on. PDF format, always send yours in PDF format. It just avoids a lot of formatting issues, and it's just a standard. And here's actually pretty interesting command on Google. I'll show you exactly what it does. So basically, this section is saying search. So this is just using the search engine keys. Search in this site, which is LinkedIn, and I want to see the keywords Google and view my resume. Let me show you what it does. It will pop up people that are working at Google and that have in their description, view my resume, with their link of their resume. So if you want good references, this is a perfect way to do it, because you could search at any company, Snapchat, Meta, anything, and you could see what kind of resumes they already got in and like how they compare to yours. And it's always a great way to have references. So pro tip, some super useful resources. So a connection I have, he has a recruiter database. So really good. This is part of the slides, so I'll share that as well. It's a giant database. I mean, like 78,000 or 100,000 recruiters on there from all types of companies. Just the LinkedIn profiles and what company they work for, etc. Very big database. So use that to your advantage as well. And then resume template, what you were asking about. This is the resume template that I have for you guys. Now, props to Eugene Hayden. This is the connection I got it from on LinkedIn, which plus shows you how you have to be connected to people on LinkedIn, meet new people, because I would have never seen resume templates, databases. He's an awesome guy. This is it. And so it's going to be in a Google Doc. The link is there as well. And you could just already use it. Just copy it. You'll be able to download it into your Google Drive. Into your Google Docs. And from there, just fix it. And you already have a really, really good template. And I think it's ATS friendly as well. So that already saves you tons of time. It's hard to find this. And finally, we're here for you as a club and personally we're here to build your technical skills. So if you have, those spaces and you're not really sure, right? You want to fill those spaces. We're here to build your skills. So we have tons of workshops, both in mobile dev, web dev, you name it. We're also here to prepare you for the interviews. So because I have hope for you guys, you will make great LinkedIn profiles, great resumes, and you will get that interview. And then you need to prep for it. And of course, we're here to celebrate when you get that internship. We're going to be the first ones here. You let us know, and we'll be very proud. So, with that being said, you guys ready to roast your resumes and LinkedIns? Yeah? All right. Sounds good. Let's do it. I'm going to stop the recording.